They say, find a man that treats you like a queen, who showers you with love, attention, and the finer things in life. But what if your king begins to lose the throne? The kingdom you've built together begins to crumble. Would you get out while you still can? Or stay by his side as everything falls apart? February 8th, 1995, Elkton, Maryland. It's late Wednesday morning, and 2 state troopers are watching traffic on one of the town's main roads.
So the police were out patrolling the streets as they usually do.
Suddenly, a sedan with New York plates speeds past.
The vehicle was going well above the speed limit.
So the police turned on their sirens and pursued the vehicle.
Fortunately, the driver pulls over without incident.
They asked to see his driver's license.
In reviewing the young man's ID, the troopers learn he is 27-year-old Alan Tate, and he lives 140 miles away in Brooklyn, New York.
Alan Tate, he's just acting suspiciously.
During the traffic stop, Alan was visibly nervous, almost panicking.
When the troopers ask to see Alan's vehicle registration, they notice something even more alarming.
When Alan reached for his registration, the officer saw a little baggie of white powder.
Then those antennas go up, and then cops thinking something's not right.
The troopers order Alan to get out of the car.
Cop brings him out, searches the vehicle, and then bingo.
In the trunk of the car, they find a black bag full of cash, drug paraphernalia, and 300 grams of crack cocaine.
That's over $15,000 worth of drugs.
That amount of drugs, it's not for personal use. It's an intent to sell.
For the authorities, this traffic stop turned drug bust is only the beginning.
He's definitely working for somebody. So they want to find out who is he working for and how big of an operation this is.
But to take this case all the way to the top and catch the kingpin, authorities will need the cooperation of his queen.
She was loyal to him. She was ride or die, by his side.
"18-year-old Michelle Miles was proud to be a Brooklyn native.
Michelle grew up in the Marcy Projects, which is public housing in New York City.
These housing projects are tight-knit.
We did a lot of singing and dancing and all those things. And when we got together, we did have fun.
Michelle was known for her warm personality.
She just had a really sweet spirit. It was almost very innocent.
She's kind-hearted. She would always give me a hug. She would always make me laugh.
Life in the projects wasn't always easy, but Michelle kept her head held high.
Michelle's biological father wasn't really in the picture, so it fell really on her mother to support the family.
What you find oftentimes in the urban areas is that there's just not a whole lot of opportunities out there.
Regardless of her family's circumstances, Michelle was determined to be successful.
She was on the road to finishing high school, and she aspired to go to college.
Michelle wanted to be able to take care of herself as well as her family.
One afternoon, Michelle met a fellow Marcy Projects resident that would change her life forever. 30-year-old Stanley Burrell.
We were sitting outside, me and a few friends on a bench. He happened to come in the direction where we were. And he was like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, "Me?"
Michelle was stunned by the older man's attention. Stanley had a reputation around the neighborhood.
His name was like out there. Everybody was talking about him, girls, guys, whoever.
All the girls wanted him. He had swag, he had clout, he had it all.
That's kind of what attracted me to him.
Rumor had it that Stanley didn't exactly get his money the legal way. But Michelle was still smitten.
We knew he a drug dealer, he got money.
Drug dealing wasn't necessarily frowned upon in the neighborhood. Sometimes it's revered. It's kind of reinforced from all angles. We have it in our music, we have it in our TV.
Stanley told Michelle he'd had his eye on her for a while.
He was like, oh, I heard you ain't got no man. You need somebody to take care of you. I guess it reeled me in.
Stanley was very smooth in his approach. Him being older and more mature, it coaxes her, it massages her self-esteem.
When Stanley asked to take Michelle out on a date, she jumped at the opportunity.
Someone such as Stanley, the second that person speaks to you, you don't lose out on the opportunity. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime shot.
Stanley took her to a movie, a nice dinner, very romantic.
He laid it on thick, gave her the love, showed her all the things that she wanted.
No man had ever treated Michelle the way this man did. He treated her just like a princess.
Stanley may have made Michelle feel like a princess when he wined and dined her. But in the bedroom, he made her feel like a queen.
I thought it was amazing. I really did, because he did things to me that I was like, okay, I never had that done.
The attraction between the two of them, it was magnetic.
Here was this man who told her she was beautiful, told her he wanted to be with her, and she fell in love and she fell hard.
Soon, the couple took their relationship to the next level. Michelle moved in with Stanley, and her entire lifestyle changed.
I saw, like, from her not having anything to having things now, like nice clothes, nice sneakers.
I stayed with the latest of whatever they had at the time.
She was like the queen of the projects. My man is Stan. He's the guy who runs things. So it actually gave her a badge of honor.
But Michelle didn't realize that badge of honor would one day make her a target and force her to choose between her freedom or her man. February 8th, 1995. Maryland state troopers have just discovered drugs in the trunk of Alan Tate's car.
There's scales, there's packaging, and there's also money.
This wasn't just some random guy's drug stash. This guy's a drug courier.
The state troopers take Alan into custody.
The police know that if he's the one transporting the drugs, he's working for somebody. Their next objective is to find out who he's working for.
Back at the station, Maryland police have gotten the FBI involved.
They know this is a bigger operation, so the feds come in.
When the police see someone carrying this big of amount of drugs, they consider it a really big deal.
When FBI agents sit down with Alan Tate, it doesn't take long for him to crack.
He says he's just the driver, and the people that they really should be looking for are Stanley Burrell and Michelle Miles.
As Alan starts to tell his story, he'll launch a 2-year undercover operation to take down one of New York's biggest drug rings and reveal the tumultuous relationship at the center of it all.
So this couple thought that they were untouchable, that they were above the law.
In the summer of 1990, 18-year-old Michelle Miles fell hard for 30-year-old rumored drug dealer Stanley Burrell.
He was a lot older than her. Michelle was young, but she loved him. That was her man.
He enticed me. He told me, oh, I could take care of you. And I said, oh, maybe there's some truth to that.
The guys that are hustling, selling drugs, they have the swag, they have the juice.
He gave her gifts, gave her a sense of self as well as support.
In the project, they was considered the king and queen.
But Michelle would soon learn the flashy new lifestyle her man afforded her came at a price.
Michelle had no idea that her newfound love was about to cost her everything.
February 8th, 1995. FBI agents are sitting down with 27-year-old Alan Tate.
His vehicle was searched, and they discovered 300 grams of crack cocaine.
It's clear to cops that Alan is just a driver. So what they want to know now is, who's running the show?
Alan Tate was claiming to be a courier for Stanley Burrell and his girlfriend, Michelle Miles.
Alan claims to have a wealth of information about Stanley and Michelle.
He claims that in addition to working with the couple, he was actually good friends with them as well.
Alan explains Stanley had been involved in the drug game for a while before he started dating Michelle. But eventually, Stanley decided to introduce Michelle into the business.
Alan remembers one night where he and some of the other members of the organization were in a Brooklyn apartment that was not too far away from the projects. This is pretty much a trap house. They were dividing drugs and packaging them for distribution.
At one point, Stanley showed up with Michelle.
So I went into the room and I seen the drugs.
Stan explained to her that was crack cocaine. And in the other pile, there was heroin.
According to Alan, Michelle seemed taken aback.
She'd heard some rumors, but he had never brought her around the organization.
I never seen it, nor was I around it. I've never seen it up close like that.
Alan says then Stanley requested something from Michelle that no one expected.
Stanley asked me if I would help him package the drugs. And I was like, are you serious?
Michelle was in total shock. This was a huge leap into Stanley's reality.
Alan says Stanley began to coax Michelle and assure her that everything would be okay.
He told her to trust him. He wouldn't let anything happen to her, but he needed her help.
She had a major sense of loyalty to him to stick by his side.
Eventually, Michelle conceded to her man.
I gave in because I was in love with him. I'm gonna do what I can to keep him.
Alan tells detectives that he saw a turn in Michelle that night.
When she first got there, she was scared, she was nervous. By the end of the night, she was packaging drugs like a pro.
She would do whatever he asked her to do, with no questions about it.
I was ride or die.
With Stanley's guidance, Michelle gradually became a key player in the organization.
Stanley taught me to purchase drugs, he taught me to cook them, and he taught me to package them as well.
She was called the Master Chef. She was called the Get Money Chick.
In fact, Alan claims Michelle became the one keeping track of all the money.
His friends collected the money. After they did that, the money would come to me.
Alan says Stanley was giving Michelle a solid cut of their profits.
He gave me $1,100 a week. Making that $1,100 a week was very appealing to me at that age.
They was king and queen. Everybody knew they had money. They running everything.
But according to Alan, by the summer of 1994, there started to be trouble in paradise for the couple.
I found out that Stan is messing with someone else.
Alan says it all came to a head one night at the trap house.
Suddenly, Michelle burst through the door and is asking, "Where's Stanley? Where's Stanley?"
They're trying to tell her that he wasn't there.
But Michelle made a beeline for the bedroom.
I go to the back, and then I caught them. So we start fighting. And then he coming trying to pull us apart. He eventually separated us.
Alan says things only escalated from there.
I knew where he kept his weapon. So I went and got the gun. He knew I knew how to use the gun because he taught me how to shoot. I'm like, walk, bitch.
After the woman left, Michelle was still clearly distraught.
I'm sick. Like, I'm really literally like sick. Like, how could he do this? He was trying to talk to me. I didn't want to hear anything he had to say. Words wouldn't even come out my mouth at that point.
But Alan says as Stanley continued to beg for forgiveness from Michelle, her demeanor changed.
He said whatever to convince me not to leave him. And I stayed with him, even after that. I didn't want to lose whatever we had.
She didn't want to lose the connection that she had with Stanley. He was not only a friend, a lover, he was her everything.
Men like Stanley, they manipulate and they take advantage of you for their own benefit. She loved him authentically. He really just wanted to use her as bait to help him make money, to help him survive.
Alan claims Stanley continued to sleep around on Michelle and even got another woman pregnant. But Michelle still stayed faithful.
I was doing everything against all that I saw, and I still continued to stay in that relationship. At no point I didn't break my loyalty to him, no matter how angry I had become with him. It was easier to stay than to walk away.
Alan says their drug operation grew bigger and bigger, despite the tumultuous relationship between Stanley and Michelle.
Michelle happened to be right alongside of Stan, organizing, cutting up. She is the queen pin.
He had a lot of people working for him. While he wasn't around, he kind of like had me in control of who got what and when. And whatever went out, I had to keep a mental note. And he would know from me what was where and if it was running low.
With Alan's statement in tow, investigators decide to move in on Stanley and Michelle. But nabbing the pillars of this drug operation will prove easier said than done.
She wasn't about to turn him in. She's willing to risk it all to stay with him.
Michelle was looking for love in all the wrong places. You end up wanting to be with this person, or a person is giving you some attention, and the attention that you've lacked your entire life. And now someone is promising you a future, and they end up taking you somewhere that you never thought that you would end up. She was really misguided into a lifestyle that wasn't something that she would have done on her own.
February 1995. The FBI is investigating a Brooklyn drug operation run by Kingpin Stanley Burrell and his girlfriend, Michelle Miles.
Michelle was functioning kind of as Stanley's office or business manager.
Michelle helped essentially cook and package, then track the money and the product of Stanley's whole operation.
Law enforcement was tipped off to the couple after apprehending Alan Tate. He was actually one of the drug couriers who was caught delivering crack cocaine.
Now that Alan has told all, federal and local authorities launch a major investigation of the drug ring based inside the Marcy houses. Determined to get Michelle and her man, the task force puts the community under heavy surveillance.
The feds have so much and so many resources. They will set up cameras over by traffic lights. They will bug payphones, surveillance through helicopters. When the feds are following you, it's unlimited.
The police are arresting as many associates of Stanley and Michelle as they can to get those key witness statements.
Every time that someone was picked up from the Marcy houses, Stanley's name came up. His name just kept coming up.
It doesn't take long for word of the investigation to filter back to Stanley.
It was a well-known fact within the projects that Stanley was under investigation and the feds were looking for him.
Stanley, he was high, and
Stanley is always on the move. He's always staying in different places, trying to stay ahead of the investigation.
Yet even with Stanley lying low and the Marcy houses buzzing with word that the feds are gunning for him, Stanley assures Michelle that she isn't in danger.
he told me the feds wasn't looking for me, they was looking for him.
In order for Stanley to stay low, he sends Michelle out to do his drug runs for him.
He asked me to go uptown to purchase the drugs. My life was going downhill from there. I knew I was allowing a lot of that stuff in my life, but I still kept going. So I said, okay, I'll go.
She would sacrifice herself if she had to please her man.
Little did Michelle know, she was being watched. The next morning, with this new surveillance in tow, the feds are finally ready to act.
The FBI feel they have enough information and they're ready to close the investigation. It was time to close in on Michelle and Stanley.
As Michelle heads to her car in the fall of 1997, 2 years after the investigation began, undercover agents are waiting outside her home.
I see this car that's parked outside. I said something strange about this vehicle because the only people who parked on that block was the people that live there.
Moments later, the agents make their move.
2 people jump out, guns pointing at everything. And I'm looking like, oh, I'm gonna get kidnapped.
But in the next instant, Michelle realizes these are no kidnappers.
They pulled their badges out. That's when I knew I'm going to jail.
They immediately have her put her hands behind her back and they place her under arrest.
Now that they have Michelle in custody, the agents press her to give up her boyfriend, the kingpin of the drug operation, Stanley Burrell.
I'm sitting there, they questioning me, where's Stanley? So they was like, you need to tell us if he in there.
Their main objective is to get to Stanley.
In the fall of 1997, federal agents have just arrested 25-year-old Michelle Miles outside her Brooklyn apartment for her participation in an extensive drug trafficking operation. Now that they have Michelle in custody, investigators' priority is locating her man and kingpin of the organization, 37-year-old Stanley Burrell.
They had reason to believe he was somewhere in the house where they just arrested Michelle.
But when police ask Michelle to tell them where Stanley is hiding inside, she refuses to cooperate.
I said, you got all the wrong information. I haven't seen him. Even though I know they know, and he was right in the house.
Law enforcement pressured her into pointing them in Stan's direction.
They said, this is your last chance to tell us, because we're gonna go in there, we're gonna go in there with force.
But Michelle doesn't budge.
I said, if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do.
even in the process of being arrested, there still was that sense of loyalty. You know, I'm riding for him.
With Michelle refusing to give in, authorities take a position outside the townhome and prepare for entry.
They were preparing essentially for the worst. Stanley could be armed and dangerous.
Authorities bust open the door and rush inside.
They did not see him immediately anywhere inside the house, so they decided to do a sweep of the home.
They eventually found him hiding upstairs in a closet.
Moments later, agents escort a handcuffed Stanley to the police cruiser.
They bring him out, sit him in the same vehicle that I'm in. He didn't know I was in there until he got in.
The stakes are high in this situation, but Stanley seems calm.
He didn't even have to say to me, Michelle, don't say anything, because he already knew I wouldn't.
Instead, all Stanley says is for Michelle not to worry.
Stanley was nonchalant about it. Like, they ain't got nothing. We good. They got nothing.
It's true. Law enforcement doesn't find any drugs inside Stanley and Michelle's home.
When you go to lock up a kingpin, you know there's not going to be any drugs there.
However, the search does uncover a different treasure trove of evidence.
They find stacks of cash. They found records of sales going back about 7 years.
Every kingpin, every major drug operation has to document the money. Who's owed, who needs to be paid. They're coded, but they're not too hard to decipher.
And they also found pictures of Stanley and his crew posing with money and with jewels and cars and showing off the fruits of their labor.
Before the morning's over, many of the people pictured will be in police custody.
Michelle and Stanley were among 16 people arrested.
After their search of the home, federal agents head back to the station and prepare to interview their suspects. They begin with Stanley.
Stanley doesn't say very much, kind of takes the position that, listen, that money that you found, I earned that money working on cars. I'm a mechanic, and this is how I made my living.
The agents don't believe a word of it.
They know Stanley is the head of the operation.
You had a bunch of men who pointed Stanley as the ringleader.
They also had surveillance of Stanley with known members of that drug ring.
As time moved on, Stanley asked for an attorney. All discussions are off.
With Stanley remaining tight-lipped, they hope they'll have better luck in their talk with Michelle.
The hopes is that she will turn on her boyfriend and give up information on Stanley.
When it's Michelle's turn in the hot seat, will she tell all? Or will she protect her man?
The feds told me, we know you know everything about Stanley Burrell and his organization, and if you tell us, we'll let you go.
She was being offered an opportunity and an outlet.
She has to make an incredibly difficult decision. She's either going to protect herself or protect her man.
In the fall of 1997, 25-year-old Michelle Miles and her boyfriend, Stanley Burrell, are both in federal custody.
This was pursuant to a NYPD and FBI joint task force targeted drug ring that was allegedly run by Michelle and Stanley.
When federal agents questioned Stanley, he denied everything.
Stanley maintains his innocence when questioned by law enforcement. He said, I've never sold drugs, and if I was a drug dealer, why didn't you find any drugs in my home?
Now, authorities are hoping they'll have better luck with Michelle.
They also know that Michelle is a big part of the operation, and she's probably privy to most of the information as far as how the operation works. So the object is to separate her, put her in a room, and apply pressure.
Once in the room with Michelle, the agents hold nothing back.
They tell Michelle they know that she's cooked, packaged, and handled money for Stanley and has gone on drug runs for him.
They inform her they have someone who's willing to testify that he was carrying drugs for Stanley and them.
That someone is drug courier turned informant Alan Tate, the man whose arrest triggered the entire investigation.
He made it out as if he worked for them, that he had a position within that organization, that he'd made trips on behalf of Michelle and Stanley.
They lay that on her. They tell her what she's dealing with, what she's facing.
This isn't like when you're busted for possession. Michelle was busted for a massive interstate drug conspiracy.
It's federal. Feds will put you away for life.
But even as the agents apply pressure, they also offer Michelle a way out by giving up Stanley.
They told me that they didn't want me. They wanted him. So if I helped them, they would let me go.
Given the circumstances, it's a tempting offer.
Michelle finds herself at crossroads, facing the biggest decision of her life. Protect myself, protect my man.
To investigators' surprise, Michelle remains faithful to Stanley.
My response was that where we came from, we don't snitch. I felt I needed to do that for my man.
This was her guy. This is her person. This was the love of her life. She was going to support him and she was going to ride for him.
Michelle's refusal to cooperate is a bitter disappointment for the agents who spent 2 years building the case against Stanley.
They thought they was gonna break me, and they didn't.
After letting Michelle stew in a holding cell for several days, federal prosecutors approach her with one last offer.
They would allow her to plead guilty to a lesser charge if she in turn testified against Stanley.
Michelle's public defender urges her to take the deal. But once again, Michelle shocks everyone.
She'd refused to go along with the plea deal.
Not only does she say no, she fires her attorney.
I ended up petitioning the court to relieve the counsel that was on my case because he was telling that it was in my best interest that I cooperate, and I still was protecting my man.
She wouldn't give in. You know, she wouldn't save herself. She would rather save him than save herself.
Despite the things that she had been through in her past for Stanley. Michelle did so much to stay loyal to her man that didn't even stop after she was arrested.
Stanley, also in jail awaiting trial, coaxes Michelle to continue to keep quiet.
Me and Stanley, we sent letters back and forth. He was always like, I love you, you're gonna be okay. I have your best interest at heart. Don't worry, everything is gonna work itself out. They have nothing, this is all I've heard from the beginning. You're gonna be fine, you're gonna get out. They're not gonna convict you.
The person she trusts the most, Stanley, is really guiding her.
I didn't break my loyalty to him. So now, I guess I have to fight.
But is Michelle making a grave mistake?
Michelle's welfare wasn't something that really crossed his mind.
He had some type of mind control on her.
Stan just wanted to be aware of the moves that were being made by Michelle.
I think that Stanley loved Michelle, but he wasn't in love with her. You can't be in love with a woman and put her in that situation. You can love someone because of the person that they are. But if you're in love with someone, you would never put them in harm's way. So there's no way that he could have possibly been in love with her. Not by a long shot.
In February 1999, 27-year-old Michelle Miles and her 39-year-old boyfriend, Stanley Burrell, go on trial together in federal court.
They were both charged with conspiracy to distribute heroin and crack cocaine.
If convicted under some of these conspiracy-type statutes, you were looking at long sentences.
Despite facing as much as life in prison, Michelle has refused repeated offers of reduced charges if she would agree to testify against Stanley.
In spite all of that had happened, Michelle was still in love with Stanley and still protecting her man.
This girl was loyal until the end. She couldn't see what was being done to her.
Stanley convinced me that I wouldn't get convicted.
In reality, the odds are stacked against Michelle and Stanley.
To help make his case, the prosecutor had documents, mountains of photographic evidence, a witness in Alan Tate, who was willing to testify against both Stanley and Michelle, and get a deal.
Many of the people arrested alongside Stanley and Michelle, their associates, runners, and lookouts, also take the stand.
Almost everybody turned on Stanley except Michelle.
In the end, Michelle's faith in Stanley proves misguided.
The final verdict was guilty on all counts.
Stanley didn't show any emotion, but Michelle, she was heartbroken.
I felt like my life was over. It didn't seem real at all. I thought it was a bad dream and I was gonna wake up from it, but I knew it was real.
When the judge reads Michelle her sentence, it's clear her nightmare is only just beginning.
She got 360 months, which equates to 30 years.
I could scream because I said, how do I get 30 years in prison? How?
When it's Stanley's turn for sentencing, the judge doesn't go easy on the kingpin either.
He was sentenced to life in prison.
Michelle's refusal to testify against him and cooperate with the prosecutors essentially was for nothing because Stanley still got the most severe punishment.
Now neither of them would be free.
From behind bars, and with the gravity of her sentence weighing on her, Michelle finally starts to break free from Stanley's grasp.
I just felt like, Michelle, you have to separate yourself from him because this man is gonna be the death of you. Look at what I'm going through right now. Had I not continued on in this relationship, I wouldn't be here.
In 2016, after 19 years behind bars, Michelle gets an opportunity for a second chance at freedom.
President Obama launched the Clemency Project. It allows qualified federal inmates to petition to have their sentences commuted.
This program was aimed to help non-violent drug offenders just like Michelle.
Michelle works with a pro bono attorney to apply for the program. And in May of that year, she receives an official response signed by President Obama.
The letter said that you are a prime example of rehabilitation, and therefore I granted you clemency. I screamed. A huge weight was lifted that day.
Since her release, Michelle hasn't missed a beat in rebuilding her life.
I'm so proud of her because she came home and she got right on her feet.
Michelle is in a healthy relationship. She has her own place. She's gainfully employed.
Right now, I work for a nonprofit organization that deals with formerly incarcerated individuals.
She has taken control of her life and she's making healthy choices and she's understanding her worth and she loves herself and she loves her freedom.
Michelle hopes her experience can serve as a warning to other young women who face a similar dilemma: losing yourself in your man.
I wish to reach young girls to really deter them from making the same mistake that I did. Don't do it. Don't date a drug dealer. Don't date anyone doing anything illegal. It only leads to exactly what happened to me, prison. Or a casket, depending.
Every king needs a queen, a woman with whom to share the spoils of his kingdom, and a love more powerful than any bond. But when you're in too deep, and your crown begins to tarnish, your kingdom can fade before your eyes. And when you begin to fall, your king isn't there to catch you. In Indianapolis, Jennifer Brundage truly believes she has found the love of her life.
They loved each other. They had discussed spending the rest of their lives together.
But when distance threatens to keep the lovers apart, she goes to great lengths to hold on to her man.
He was gunned down for no reason. Could have backed away from this plot.
She was committed to do whatever it took, even if it meant committing murder.
She got caught up in the love for her man.
And later, in New Jersey, Sade Harris has always played by the rules growing up.
She had never been in trouble before.
Until she meets a man that takes her on an unlawful ride.
And tapped into an emotion that he wants to exploit.
She was just infatuated and she was just going along for the ride.
In her hometown of New Palestine, Indiana, 17-year-old Jennifer Brundage has lived the sweet life.
Jennifer had a good relationship with her family. She had both parents at home. She had a very well-to-do, comfortable childhood.
She lived in a nice area, nice homes, a lot of really, professional people that are well-educated, have a lot of advantages, and she was a pretty good student in school.
Even though the straight-A student seems to have it all, she still longs for something more.
Some of the other girls in the class seem to be a little more popular than Jennifer, but overall, she's looking to explore more of a social life.
But that's proving to be a bit of a task in this sleepy town.
There's not much to do in New Pal other than whatever there is to do in high school. She always wanted to go to the big city, which around here is Indianapolis.
There are some people who are very content to be in their small towns because it gives them what they need for their soul. But then you have other people who are afraid of being stuck, if you will, in a small town. They dream of the adventure of the big city.
Her dreams are one step closer to becoming a reality when she graduates high school and gets accepted to Indiana University's School of Business in the fall. Until then, Jennifer samples all that Indianapolis has to offer just 30 minutes west.
Jennifer was really eager to just start a new life and just have some new experiences. So she found a group of people in Indianapolis who she was having fun with. They were different.
On a night out with her new friends, she meets 19-year-old Kenneth Kelly.
He was someone that Jennifer had never known, had never experienced. He was a young African-American male who was nice to her, gave her attention, and probably made her feel special.
Kenneth appeared to be relatively well-adjusted, and those people close to him would say he had a certain type of charisma or charm about him.
But unlike Jennifer, Kenneth couldn't afford to go to college after high school, so he waits tables at a local restaurant to make ends meet.
He's from a pretty rough background, a pretty rough neighborhood. A lot of his friends have been arrested or have gone to jail. He does not have a criminal history. However, he has struggled to really move forward in his life. Everyone loves him. He's a really nice and likable person.
Though Jennifer and Kenneth come from different backgrounds, they're quick to merge their worlds.
When you look at that old saying that opposites attract, for some couples that's really true. I think part of the allure is learning something really different from what you're used to.
They began to start dating, and eventually they were head over heels in love and spending time together almost daily. She was leaving to go to college in a few months, but they were really sound and confident that they were meant to be together and they wanted to spend their lives together.
But finding the means to be together is proving to be a challenge for the young couple.
They lived probably about 25 to 30 miles, if not more, apart. And Jennifer was the only one with a mode of transportation. Jennifer had her own car, but Kenny didn't. That was becoming a problem as the summer went on, as she prepared to go to Indiana University.
Once classes start, Jennifer will be too busy with school to pick Kenneth up. With the hour distance between Bloomington and Indianapolis, it will be impossible for them to find the time to see each other. With no car or the means to buy his own ride to see his girl, Kenneth struggles to find a solution to their problem.
And it's put a strain on their relationship. He didn't discourage her from going to college, but it was stressing the couple out to make sure they would be able to spend time together.
For young couples, they really need that together time. They need that face-to-face contact. And so when you look at their becoming separated, it can be a real recipe for disaster.
And as thoughts of how to maintain his relationship weigh heavily on his mind, Kenneth hopes for a quick fix to his problems. Then, one day, his prayers are answered while spending time at the house on the block with the cool mom, Linda Scheimer.
And Kenneth spent a lot of time over there because he was friends of Linda's children.
Kenny went to the home, presumably to hang out with friends. No one was there, but Linda said it was okay. He could hang out and watch television while he waited for others to arrive.
And they were watching television, and there was a commercial for a Cadillac came on the TV.
He expresses to Linda that he wants to have that car. He really would love if he could have that Cadillac so that he could go visit Jennifer when she goes off to college in a couple months.
Upon hearing this, Linda's ears perk up.
As she listened to Kenny lament about how he wanted and really needed a car to continue his relationship with Jennifer, Linda had issues of her own and had figured that there might be a way that she and Kenny could help each other.
This was an opportunity that Linda had been waiting for, and she finally found someone who she could pray on to help her complete her sick and twisted idea.
With that, Linda offers Kenny a very dangerous proposition. And with a little help from Jennifer, her devious plan can go off without a hitch.
She was committed to do whatever it took, even if it meant committing murder.
This is a sick, twisted plot.
In Indianapolis, Jennifer Brundage's boyfriend, Kenneth Kelly, confides in his friend's mom, Linda Scheimer, his desire to own his very own Cadillac so he can visit his girlfriend once she goes off to college in the fall.
As Kenneth was confiding in Linda, Linda made Kenneth a very generous promise.
Linda told Kenny that she could help him get that Cadillac. She knew someone who had the exact Cadillac that he was admiring through the car commercial.
But in order for her to help him, Kenneth has to help her first. She explains that her 25-year friendship with her best friend, Samantha Dobbins, has hit a rough patch because she despises Samantha's husband of 9 years, Brett.
Linda felt that Brett got in the way of her relationship with her friend Samantha. She felt he was not good for her best friend and wanted him essentially out of the picture.
Linda makes a proposition to Kenneth that if he can kill Brett Dobbins, she will find a way to give Kenneth one of Brett's Cadillacs. And one is very similar to the one that Kenneth saw in the commercial.
When we're looking at emotions, really disliking someone, or even worse, hating someone may lead to irrational thoughts. And most people, though, thank goodness, don't act out on it.
I think that Kenny was originally surprised by Linda's request, but ultimately he looked at it and thought that it was a manner to achieve his goal of having a vehicle and of being closer to the woman he wanted to be with.
With his mind spinning, Kenneth tells Linda that he'll think about her proposition and heads home. Later that night, Jennifer goes to Kenneth's house and he shares the conversation that took place earlier that day.
Jennifer was shocked and not impressed, but Kenny believed it was really the only way that he could get what he needed to keep he and Jennifer together. She tried to talk him out of it, convinced that there had to be another way.
Despite her efforts to talk him out of the hideous plan, her loyalty to Kenneth gets the best of her.
Ultimately, Jennifer agreed to help Kenneth with the murder.
When a person is in a state of desperation, they're probably not thinking clearly and they're acting on impulse and therefore may make all of the wrong decisions.
A few days later, the couple meets up with Linda Scheimer to let her know they're willing to go through with the plan.
Linda provided Kenny with all of the information he needed to get this job done. She also rode with Kenny and Jennifer in Jennifer's car to show them exactly where the Dobbins house was located.
They ride 30 minutes away from Indianapolis. Linda shows them exactly where they live. She shows them their driveway. Linda even goes as far as telling Kenneth exactly what time Brett leaves to work every morning.
She suggests that with no one around early that hour, there will be no witnesses and they can easily pull off the hit.
Kenneth and Jennifer are still very naive, still very desperate, still very trustworthy of Linda, so they continue to follow Linda's master plan.
Sometimes it's very easy for young people to be manipulated by an older person. I mean, think about it. The young person is very inexperienced. They're looking to that older person for guidance, and sometimes that older person can take them in a very bad place.
In the days that follow, Kenneth is determined to get the job done, and he needs the right weapon for the attack.
Kenneth decided that a gun would be better to carry out this murder. He set out to go get a gun from one of his cousins, Ray. Kenneth didn't give Ray many details, but he did mention it to him. Ray blew it off and thought Kenneth was just talking and joking. However, Ray did let Kenneth borrow his gun.
A week later, Jennifer continues to stand by her man as they head 30 miles east to Eden with a strategy in place and a weapon in hand.
She drove Kenny to the Dobbins residence in the wee hours of the morning, long before Brett Dobbins was supposed to leave the home on his way to work.
Kenneth instructed Jennifer to park approximately a block away so she would be out of the view of the Dobbins home. At that time, Kenneth got out of the vehicle and Jennifer moved the vehicle as instructed.
She sits nervously in the driver's seat as she waits for her boyfriend. She can't see the Dobbins' home from where she's parked, so she can't immediately tell if he will get the job done. And right on time, as the clock hits 5:30 a.m., Brett emerges from his home, unaware that danger is lurking right behind him.
He never saw Kenny approach from behind.
Kenneth came up behind Brett and shot him in the back.
Caught off guard, Brett falls to the ground and screams out.
Brett had no idea he would be a victim.
Jennifer and Kenneth were in deeper than they ever imagined.
And later, Sade Harris goes to great lengths to secure a future with a man she believes is the love of her life.
The lifestyle that Jarrell was providing may have played a role in her willingness to go along with helping Jarrell.
Jarrell has controlled her mind and impressed her so much that she will do almost anything to make him happy.
Where'd he go?
In the early morning hours in Eden, Indiana, Jennifer Brundage and her boyfriend, Kenneth Kelly, have just carried out the planned hit on 55-year-old Brett Dobbins outside of his home.
Kenneth shot him in the back, and then Mr. Dobbins fell to the ground. He then began to scream in pain. Kenneth then returned and fired another shot, after which there was no more sounds from Mr. Dobbins.
Once he's sure that Brett is dead, Kenneth runs back to the car where Jennifer awaits nervously. In his haste to make a quick getaway, he forgets to place the small bag of marijuana Linda had given him on Brett's body.
Kenny's only concern was leaving the scene as quickly as possible. Kenny jumped in Jennifer's car. Jennifer looked at Kenny and said, "That was loud. I could hear him screaming from here."
Jennifer was concerned that if she heard it, someone else possibly could have heard or saw something as well.
We gotta go.
The two immediately flee from the scene.
They quickly got out of the neighborhood and they were hungry, so they went to a fast food restaurant, and then they left there and went back to Kenneth's home where they took a nap.
Back at the Dobbins residence, a phone call wakes up Brett's wife, Samantha, around 7:30 a.m.
Hello? Brett was known for being on time every time at his place of employment. When his boss called the family to find out if something had gone wrong, Samantha went outside to see if his car was still there. That's when Samantha found her husband, Brett, dead in their front yard.
She was horrified, shocked, and devastated when she found her husband dead on the ground.
They didn't have any known enemies. They were in a nice, quiet neighborhood. Brett was on his normal daily routine, so to see that your husband is gunned down in your driveway is very frightening.
She immediately calls 911 as neighbors begin to pour out of their homes to investigate Samantha's loud cries echoing through the street.
Once the police arrived, they scoured the neighborhood to see if they could find anything.
The only evidence found at the scene were shell casings from a weapon.
Meanwhile, Jennifer and Kenneth continue to lay low in Indianapolis.
After Kenny and Jennifer woke up from their nap, they went to Linda Scheimer's house to inform her that they had, in fact, done what she had asked them to do.
Yes.
Good.
After giving Linda the lowdown on Brett's murder, Kenneth asks her when he'll get the Cadillac that she had promised.
Linda told Kenneth that they needed to wait so that no one would be suspicious. She also probably didn't think it would be a good idea to ask her best friend about a vehicle when her husband had just been murdered.
The teens leave Linda's home and pretend the day's events never happened. A week later, Jennifer leaves for Bloomington to start her freshman year at the university, while Kenneth remains in Indianapolis. Despite the guilt they are feeling, both agree to never speak of what they have done. But before they can fully move on, Kenneth has to make sure he gets rid of anything that can trace the murder back to them.
Kenneth returns the gun back to his cousin, Ray.
Having no idea that the gun had bodies on it, Ray puts the gun back in the glove compartment of his girlfriend's car. The following day, detectives knock on Ray's door when his gun is linked to the murder through ballistics testing.
The detectives were questioning Ray. They were inquiring about his handgun and if it had been used in a crime or if he had loaned it to anybody. And at that time, Ray responded, "Yeah, my cousin Kenneth used my gun recently."
Having linked the gun to Kenny, authorities arrested Kenny at his home. Kenny informed authorities that his girlfriend Jennifer had been involved in the commission of the crime. He also said Linda Scheimer had orchestrated the entire thing.
Police charge Kenneth Kelly with murder. A day later, just 1 week into the fall semester, police arrest Jennifer Brundage for her role in the murder of Brett Dobbins.
Jennifer also cooperated with the police, and she told them everything.
Sometimes, no matter how loving a couple may be, no matter how much they may have protected one another, when law enforcement comes down on them, they'll turn on each other on a dime.
Jennifer Brundage is charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder, and a felony charge of assisting a criminal. The day after Jennifer's arrest, police track down Linda Scheimer and charge her with felony murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Jennifer and Kenneth both take a plea deal and agree to testify against Linda. And despite their arrests, the two lovers maintain their relationship.
And while both parties are in the Hancock County Jail, they found a way to sneak letters to one another.
The couple vows to stand by each other and comes up with a plan to make sure they'll be together through the end of time.
Just a few days before Linda Scheimer's trial, Kenny was found unresponsive in his jail cell. Kenny was rushed to the hospital, which also prompted a check of the entire jail, where Jennifer was then found appearing intoxicated. She was also rushed to the hospital.
Both Jennifer and Kenneth were receiving some medication while they were incarcerated. They kind of stashed away the medicine over a period of time.
Couples who believe that they're truly in love will do anything to be together. If they're forced apart, then you have to look at the Romeo and Juliet syndrome. If they can't be together in life, then they'll be together in death.
Jennifer and Kenneth each recover from their failed suicide attempt and testifies in Linda's trial. In line with their plea deals, Jennifer Brundage is sentenced to 8 years in prison for assisting a criminal. Kenneth Kelly is sentenced to 55 years in prison for the murder of Brett Dobbins. Although Linda Scheimer maintains her innocence, a jury finds her guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit and is sentenced to 55 years in prison. In the end, following her heart instead of her mind cost Jennifer everything.
Young love can be manipulated to do just about anything. However, that love is not worth the price to be paid.
This couple, they were so desperately in love that they traded their emotions and addictions for one another for clear thinking and common sense.
Jennifer made some life-changing decisions that have cost her her future.
Jennifer Brundage risked her freedom and her all for the deep love she had for her man. 700 miles away in New Jersey, Sade Harris's desire to secure a life with her new boyfriend puts her promising future in jeopardy. Hailing from a loving household in Trenton, 18-year-old Sade is a typical teen who plays by the rules.
Sade was known to be a good student, had never been in trouble with the law, and had come really from a solid middle-class background.
Her mother and father both worked, held full-time jobs. I believe her father was in his position for 20-plus years, if not longer.
After graduating from high school, she enrolls herself in college while still living under her parents' roof.
Sade entered a community college where she was pursuing a degree in nursing.
But by her junior year in, she hits a bump on the road.
She became pregnant, and she continued in her studies despite the fact that she was a single mother. That must have been very challenging because nursing is certainly not an easy degree.
When people have a goal or a dream that they want to achieve, they really work very hard at it. And the more roadblocks thrown in their way, well, it just motivates them to work that much harder.
By the time Sade turns 22, she is an honor student with only 3 semesters left before becoming a registered nurse. But with all her accomplishments and the support of her family, there's one thing she's missing in her life: love.
Sade is looking for that love that she feels as if she can intimately have with a partner to take her life forward. She has a good family background, so she wants that in her own life.
When one grows up in a loving and stable family, it's only a natural tendency to not only want to be a successful adult, but to pass on that same kind of environment to then your family and children.
Then, as if by fate, Cupid strikes one winter night while she attends a college party and meets 24-year-old store clerk Jarrell Mulkey.
They became fast friends and then just started hanging out together.
The attraction and relationship developed very quickly, and that within a short time of meeting, they were seeing each other frequently.
The new couple hit the most expensive restaurants and the hottest clubs around town, with Jarrell footing the bill every time.
Jarrell was clearly spending a lot of money on her, and she apparently enjoyed that. The source of his money was never a question, as far as I know, in her mind, even though the amount of money that he was spending might be more than one would think a salesman in an apparel store could make.
But what Sade doesn't realize is that her new beau has a deep, dark secret that enables him to afford his expensive lifestyle.
He entered the bank, presented a demand note indicating that he had a gun. He left the bank with approximately $4,000.
Sade had no idea of the potential dangers to which this relationship would expose her.
What she doesn't know could cost her everything.
Jersey girl Sade Harris is head over heels for her new boyfriend, Jarrell Mulkey, who spoils her with expensive dates and non-stop partying. But she's in the dark on how he seems to have a never-ending flow of cash.
She may have some questions as to where the cash is coming from, but she's pushing that aside at this point.
Sometimes in new relationships, we don't tend to see the imperfections of that new partner because in many ways, we want to keep that feeling of love and excitement.
Then, a few days later, Sade leaves her house to pick up Jarrell. He asks her to drive him to a bank so he can make a withdrawal. But on the way there, he makes a joke that catches her off guard.
I was like, let's go in and rob the bank right now. Mulkey indicated, hey, what would you think if I robbed the bank? She just kind of laughed and said, you wouldn't do that, would you?
Thinking nothing of it, Sade parks the car in front of the bank as Jarrell walks inside.
Jarrell enters the bank without a disguise and hands the teller a note. The note says, I have a gun. Give me $3,000. Don't push the alarm.
He was given a sum of money and exited the bank, and Sade drove him away, not aware that he had actually just committed a bank robbery.
That old saying that ignorance is bliss is really true. It's just easy to turn that blind eye and just keep on going, or as we say, just go with the flow.
The pair walks away with $4,000 and celebrate. They have a romantic dinner for two. The following week, Sade is blindsided when Jarrell heads out of town to visit family in Houston, and the two agree to take a small break in their relationship while he's gone. And without skipping a beat, he plans to make sure his wallet is full while he's there.
After arriving in Houston, Jarrell established contact with a female acquaintance named Latasha Weber, who some people would describe as an on-again, off-again girlfriend.
Not knowing his real intentions, she drives him to a bank, thinking he's going to cash a check. She remains in the car as he walks inside and employs his signature move. He successfully walks out of the bank with more money than he came in with, but that's not enough for him, and decides to hit another bank a couple days later.
While we obviously don't know for sure what was in his mind, the fact that by this time he had already committed a number of bank robberies and had been successful in doing so suggests that he was going to continue on this pattern.
In 1 month, he's robbed 2 banks and got $9,000 in cash.
Back home in the Garden State, Sade busies herself with school while her serial bank robber boy toy continues to make moves.
She probably had no idea what was happening.
When someone is in love, they want to keep that good feeling going. They will tend to turn a blind eye. For Sade, was out of sight, out of mind. She could have gotten out of the whole thing because she didn't know anything was happening anyway.
For the next month, Jarrell parties it up with Latasha, having little to no contact with Sade. But eventually, he knows it's time to go back home. And when he arrives back in New Jersey, Sade's there with open arms.
Things seem to be going well at this point for Jarrell and Sade. He's been doing well financially, and there's nothing that says that there's been any break in the romanticism of their relationship, despite what may be going on and off with Latasha in Houston.
After a little over a month of dating on and off, the money begins to wear down, and Jarrell knows it's time to do another bank job, but he's going to need some help. So he decides to fully let Sade in on his money-making scheme, and she assists him in the next hit.
He's kind of taking advantage of her mind and her innocence. He's got control of her thought processes, and she's very, very open at this time to do a lot of things that he says do.
She was probably lulled into a false sense of security and would do things that she normally wouldn't have done.
Willing to do anything for her man, she agrees. And a couple days later, around noon, with Sade at the wheel of her own car, the couple arrives at a bank in Lawrenceville, just outside of Trenton.
He instructs her to go in the bank and get a deposit slip. Sade nervously follows his instructions, goes into the bank, gets the deposit slip, comes back out to the car, gives the deposit slip to Jarrell.
He then subsequently fills out the slip indicating that this is a bank robbery, I have a gun, and goes in and passes that slip to the teller and robs the bank.
Jarrell casually walks out of the bank with $1,900 in his pocket and joins Sade, where she's been waiting obediently. Once she has had a chance to calm her nerves, she whisks them and their loot away.
At this point, considering Jarrell's success rate in robbing banks, and now he's enlisted a new partner, we don't know what could be next.
With banks throughout Jersey on high alert, the new dynamic duo is just getting started.
Engagement with this activity with Jarrell, Sade was taking risks far greater than I think she imagined.
Sade Harris is in the driver's seat of a getaway car after she and boyfriend Jarrell Mulkey rob a bank in Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
Sade and Jarrell got away with $1,900 on the bank robbery.
Risk takers, or people who take a lot of risk, really do believe in that saying, no risk, no reward. So when they get that reward, it almost becomes addictive, that they have to do even more things in order to get a larger reward.
Feeling confident they can pull off another job and double up the money, the duo decides to strike again.
He had Sade drive him to a bank in Hamilton, New Jersey.
The new Bonnie and Clyde hope to rob the bank in the same fashion as their previous heist. But once inside, Sade's nerves get the best of her.
She really didn't know what she was doing. And she kind of stumbled and was inquiring about opening an account. And when the teller asked her for ID, she didn't know what to do.
She clearly had the presence of mind to know not to have her real identification, or at least not to show it. But at the same time, she hadn't thought through what would happen when the teller asks for identification when she asked about opening an account.
People who are engaging in antisocial behaviors or are up to no good are often anxious, they're often nervous because they know that they could be busted at any time.
The bank employee is suspicious as Sade quickly leaves the bank and goes back to the car where Jarrell is waiting. When she walks out the door, the perceptive banker picks up the phone to report the unusual encounter.
The teller was very observant and was able to identify that she was acting suspicious, and she contacted local authorities with that information.
Armed with the tip from the teller, the FBI started looking into different bank robberies with similar MOs. It was the information from the teller regarding the vehicle that first allowed the FBI to link that vehicle to potentially the other robberies.
4 days later, Sade and Jarrell target another bank in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Upon arriving there, Jarrell went in and followed his usual MO. This time, he wore a hat, but he still did not attempt to disguise himself.
He walks out of the bank, and this time, he has $1,400, and he drives off with Sade.
As the couple takes off, they are unaware that a witness has spotted Jarrell leaving the bank and getting into Sade's car. The do-gooder is able to get the full license plate number and description of the car and calls the police.
At that point, we were able to link that robbery to the Lawrence robbery, as well as the attempt or the casing of the Sun Bank in Hamilton, New Jersey. We looked at the surveillance video from all three banks, and we were able to determine what appeared to be the black male who entered those banks prior to the robberies, as well as the same black female.
With the corroborated witness, they're able to get the name of the owner of the car. And the owner of the car is none other than Sade Harris.
Sometimes even good kids do bad things, and it's either because of being influenced by a negative peer group or just plain teen rebellion.
Meanwhile, the couple continues to spend the money from the robberies on booze and partying around Jersey, completely unaware that their wild nights of drunken debauchery are numbered. A couple days after identifying Sade as the getaway driver, the FBI and the local police pay her a visit at her parents' house in Trenton, where she lives.
They told her of the nature of the investigation and indicated to her that her vehicle, or at least a vehicle looking like hers, had potentially been involved in a number of bank robberies.
Knowing that the jig is up, Sade makes a stunning admission.
She acknowledged her role in the bank robberies and exactly what she did, as well as Jerome Mulkey, where they went after the bank robberies, what they did with some of the proceeds.
Sade's cooperation included her not only acknowledging that Jerome Mulkey was the other individual involved, but she identified him and specifically identified specific photographs from bank surveillance videos as Jerome Mulkey being the individual depicted.
Sometimes when people are caught because they were influenced by someone else to commit that crime, they're going to save themselves. They're going to look at that person who influenced them and say, wait a minute, it's me or that other person, I'm gonna save my own skin.
After Sade's confession and after her implicating Jarrell in the robberies, charges were filed both locally and federally on Sade and also on Jarrell. Now, Sade was taken into custody immediately after she confessed.
But when they try to arrest her partner in crime, he's nowhere to be found. And law enforcement will not rest until he's in police custody.
He could be anywhere. He's a fugitive on the run.
Garden State gal Sade Harris sits in the back seat of a police car on robbery charges, while her fugitive boyfriend of 2 months, Jerome Mulkey, has made his way back to Houston.
He doesn't even know what's going on in New Jersey and that Sade has been arrested and charged. He's reconnected with Latasha, and at this point in time, he's about ready to make his next move.
Jarrell walks into a bank while Latasha remains in the car.
Same MO, walks in, no disguise, same note, whispering voice, walks out with his biggest hit yet. He gets 14 grand.
When a person commits the same crime over and over again, look, it's just human nature that they're going to get better at it. You get away with it the first time, second time, third time, so you'll just keep doing it because you think now that you've mastered it.
But this time, Sade is speaking up where it counts. She informs the feds that when he's not in Jersey, Jarrell's partial to the Lone Star State. And they're hot on his heels.
We coordinated with our federal bank robbery coordinator in Houston, sent some photos, and they were able to identify Jerome Mulkey as having possibly been involved in a couple bank robberies in Houston as well, based on the information that we were able to provide from New Jersey.
What makes it so easy and so simple is that this bank robber does not have a disguise when he goes in and robs the bank.
Then, just 4 days after his last robbery, the FBI sweeps in for the collar.
We had some pretty good information we were able to come up with of his whereabouts. He was subsequently arrested.
After Jarrell was confronted with the evidence, he confessed to committing 3 robberies in New Jersey and 3 robberies in Texas.
He is transferred back to New Jersey, where he faces 6 federal charges of robbery. Latasha Weber is also arrested and charged with 3 counts of robbery. With Jarrell in custody, the FBI also charges Sade as an accomplice to 2 of the New Jersey robberies.
Sade was sentenced to 10 months incarceration, of which she served 5, and she was ordered to pay restitution of $3,300 and also had to undergo supervised release for 3 years.
That saying, honesty is the best policy, is true, and it was especially true for Sade, because when she cooperated, it ended up in her cutting a deal and getting a much lighter sentence.
As for Jarrell's Houston hookup, Latasha Weber, a jury finds her not guilty of the 3 counts of robbery charges against her. And finally, Jerome Mulkey pleads guilty to 6 counts of bank robbery and receives a sentence of 6.5 years in prison with 3 years supervised release. He is also ordered to pay $30,300 in restitution, but the time he spent in the big house does nothing to change his ways.
After serving 78 months in federal prison, he's again arrested for robbing additional banks in the Houston area and is sentenced to 46 months in jail.
There are two scenarios you might see with people who've done time and now are released to society. One set of individuals have been rehabilitated. They perhaps really do believe what they did was wrong and live a productive life. And then you have those who tend to resort back to their ways of crime.
In the end, Sade put too much trust in a man who took her for a ride.
Just like looks can be deceiving, words can be deceiving, feelings can be deceiving, and emotions can be deceiving.
Trust is one of those things that needs to be the foundation of a relationship. It needs to be earned and needs to be built day by day. But if you have blind trust and you know nothing about that individual, well, then you may be letting yourself in for a big, big fall.
I think my advice to anybody is to really be careful before you get into a committed relationship. If what they're doing is something that is risky or can get you into trouble, I would turn and run as fast as I could.
दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी खाक समाए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ऊंचे लम्हे महल बना दे ऊंचे लम्हे महल बना दे दगा फरेब ते जुल्म कमा दे दगा फरेब ते जुल्म कमा दे हाय कुछ नहीं खड़ते नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कुछ नहीं खड़ते नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े आए मावा तू बिछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए मावा तू बिछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुख दे सजना सारे संगी सुख दे सजना सारे संगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी हाय कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हसना रोना गम लाचारी हसना रोना गम लाचारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी हाय कंजरी दीनी मिसाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा बे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी पुत वे तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा पुत तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुल्तान भी आए बड़े बड़े सुल्तान भी आए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए हाय हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया